Manchester United 1, Brighton 2. The Erik ten Hag era begins with defeat.
Big fat L.
It almost felt like unthinkable on one hand, but sort of the only possible outcome on the other. There was so much.
It felt right.
It felt inevitable. It almost felt right by the end. I'm sort of stunned. I'm joined by Jordan. I'm joined by Tom as well. I'll start with you, Tom. Just give me your sort of overall thoughts on that game, because we were, well, me personally, so excited before that, and then just not there, was it at all today?
Well, I think we said in the little break there, there's no surprises from the areas that Brighton exploited, and they managed to, the areas that they got on top of us in the game and showed us up. We do have these glaring weaknesses. There were positives in the game. I think the second half was better. Once we got playing, we kept them penned in for quite a while. Sure, the goal didn't come, but there was a few half chances, and if they go in, it's not a disaster, but it's very clear that it will be a disaster if we don't get some of these signings over the line. Yeah. And once again, in a few weeks' time, it's McFred.
Yeah, there, like Tom said, it was almost the perfect example of like, you can have all the new ideas and the new theories and this and that, but if your team is fundamentally lacking quality in certain areas, it's almost like it's not even lacking that much quality. It's like you could probably take McTominay or Fred and put them in another team and they'd play well, but they are so exploitable together. You can just play a certain way where wait for them to get the ball and then press 2 men at once or 2 men on each, like they did over and over again, and you can just win the ball back and win the ball back and win the ball back. And yeah, go on, Jordan. Give me your thoughts on that game, because there's so much excitement and then that.
I mean, I'm trying to look at some sort of positives that we had. I think Christian Eriksen had a very good game, especially when he even dropped deeper from where he was, because playing in that sort of false nine rotating role with Bruno Fernandes, I didn't really understand why he was there, but he played better as he was deeper in the pitch. Some of the passes, some of the passing range that he's got is fantastic, and I think we'll be very lucky to have that for the season ahead. But it's the conversation about McFred that's just never going to go away until we see them both not in a Manchester United starting lineup, which is few and far between anyway. But McTominay just looked like he was having to make tackles when he was in possession. His passing today was terrible. I'd like to know what his pass accuracy was today, because it was absolutely terrible. Fred, again, we were speaking on before the game kicked off how much we actually like him as a player, what he can actually give to us positively. But first 2 minutes of the game, when he's passing the ball across a 6-yard box, you're thinking he's going to have one of these stinkers again. Yeah. And he did, because he didn't look confident on the ball. When he was pressing, he seemed to be out of position for the second goal again. And it will happen with Ten Hag's style of play, how much he loves to press and try and box other teams in. But Dalot was so far up the pitch, Fred should realise that, okay, there's 2 players behind me that can take advantage of the fact that Dalot's out of position. I'll sit back 5 or I'll sit back 10.
But he doesn't have that composure or speed of thought. I mean, Ten Hag's obviously desperate to bring De Jong in. It's that area of the pitch. You put Fred in there and ask him to do that, they're gonna target him. They're going to try it because they know they can nick the ball off him and force him into a mistake. There's no surprise that you got that performance from him today.
It's like that, like you said, Jordan, the positional awareness where, because I think it's almost like Fred thinks, and I think some people think pressing is just running at the ball or running at the man on the ball. Pressing is a very nuanced, difficult, almost mathematical formula of when to go, who goes, where you go, who covers the gaps in the spaces. For that second goal, especially I can't remember if this first or second, because they sort of had similar kind of balls in behind, and then but the one that started with, like you said, the back heel in their corner,
second goal,
the second goal. Fred there. You aren't pressing because he goes too late. First of all, he waits till the I think it was Eriksen or McTominay on their man. He waits till that's already been concluded, that kind of little 50-50, and then he waits a second and then he goes. That's not pressing. That's just being out of position. That's just ill discipline. Like if you leave your position and then they pass it round you, it's not, well, I pressed and I tried. You just did the wrong thing, and that happens, like you said, Tom. It's almost something that an opposition can kind of like feed, and they can make it happen where you go, if we do this, United's midfield will just clear out the way. We can draw them in, pass it around them, and do it time and time again. Like I said, Leicester did it a couple of seasons ago. I'm not even sure if it was McTominay playing. It was certainly Fred. Wolves at the start of last season did it, and they almost just did it by giving the ball to Traore and letting him run into those gaps. But that is something that a good team can just exploit over and over again. We need someone in midfield that doesn't just run to the ball blindly, that their positioning is top notch time and time and time again. I think someone, like we said before the game, someone like Carrick or De Jong, that similar style where you know where he's going to be, he can always receive the ball. Eriksen did a great job of it in the second half, but by then Brighton were dropping back a little bit. He didn't have the same pressures that Fred and McTominay did. But again, I'm all for giving people second chances. Before the game, I was talking up the possibility of McTominay pushing on this season, having a season where you're not going to be a top player, but someone where you can, start for Manchester United and still, being a team that can win trophies. But again, it's just the same old problems time after time. We'll get to your super chats in just a minute. This whole situation in the striking department is proved itself to be a bit of a joke as well, didn't it? When you've got Bruno playing up there, then Eriksen comes in, then Ronaldo comes in, then Donny comes in, and it's like certain things didn't help Ten Hag today, but it sort of shined a light on all of the problems, didn't it? Like Ronaldo's not starting because he's not fit, because he's not turned up. We've got no other options there. The midfield's not, like, this was almost a sort of paint by numbers. Here are the problems with Manchester United, wasn't it?
And he didn't fancy Rashford to play through the middle. I mean, we talk about Freddie McTominay, but I was disappointed in Rashford today. Thought he did nothing.
Yeah.
Thought Bruno did nothing.
I found this on the web.
There you go. What's it
There we
found?
go.
It's
found a
Something
forward
about
for us.
Marcus Rashford. Sorry
a
about that.
replacement for one of our strikers.
But it's more than just them, isn't it? There's so many areas of the team that are they're just not good enough. Even the players that we're expecting to do the job for us in the coming weeks, it's the same old thing. We're wanting them to do well, but another game just passing certain players by. Yeah. It is a little worrying.
Yeah.
Arnautovic isn't going to fix it, but
Well, he's not
because it got rejected.
We're body
short.
short.
Yeah, we are. Is there some optimism and some positivity, Jordan, where we've still only played 3 or 4 matches, or 4 or 5 matches, with the first team under Ten Hag's systems? There were some signs of improvement. I think in the second half, we seemed like we had more obvious ways of creating chances. We didn't turn those into goals due to a mixture of bad finishing. Like Rashford and Bruno had 2, brilliant chances to score goals. Both of them, one was saved, one went over. Are there, some signs of optimism? It's a long season. People were talking before about how to sort of sum up the game. Some people talking about long season ahead and this sort of thing, when really, plenty of teams lose their first game of the season and go on to have good campaigns. But, do you have signs of optimism at all there? Or is it all just, an absolute gut punch?
It's an early hiccup, obviously, 'cause it's the first game. You'd expect the players to be right up for it. And the first 10 minutes, it looked like they were. It looked like they really wanted to go out and try and prove a point. But again, Brighton got back into the game towards that sort of second half of the first half, and then the first goal just completely deflated everyone. Yeah. The second goal, again, there was 3 huge problems today in this team: positioning, awareness, and positioning awareness. As in they're a separate thing entirely, because the whole reason why we conceded 2 goals today was because players in full-back areas, not necessarily full-backs, but players in full-back areas, Fred for the second goal, Shaw for the first goal, weren't aware there were men behind him. They need to at least be maybe a couple of yards back, or just look over the shoulder. It's that simple. It's basic defending. If you're a fullback and you're having to come across because the ball's on the opposite side to where you are, you have to be aware what's behind you.
Yeah.
They weren't aware. They couldn't get a block in, and they concede 2 goals from it. Now, in the first goal, Maguire's positioning could be questioned when he obviously had one man who was let go, and then Shaw had to come back quickly because he had 2 men on his side. His positioning there could have been questioned. For the second goal, I think that's just a result of the high risk, high reward pressing that Ten Hag wants. That will happen in the season. It won't be the first time where we'll get caught out from a press. I can guarantee that.
There were risks taken in the way they approached the game today.
Absolutely,
So you're
absolutely.
concede
And we saw it
chances.
in the Liverpool game, in Eric's first game. We must have pressed 3 or 4 times with centre halves stepping in high. Liverpool just took advantage of it. The tackle didn't necessarily work, and then next thing you know, Luis Diaz is on a counter, or Mo Salah was on the counter, or Harvey Elliott, or whoever it was. There were signs in that game already, but that's the sort of thing that happens when you play such a high-pressing game. In that scenario, our fullback was so high up the pitch. He was out of position, and again, we spoke about it before. Fred's positional awareness should have been, I shouldn't be here. I don't need to go because there's two behind me, so I'm going to sit back 5 and try and cover. He got back in time, but he just had no scuba that there was a guy behind him. So you said optimism, but I think that probably the two most optimistic things, I think our summer signings today played quite well.
Yeah.
If you had to single them out individually, Eriksen's passing range and his vision was very good. It was just clean. It was just what he wanted from an attacking midfielder. And Martinez looked comfortable on the ball. He looked comfortable in situations with big, strong forwards, because Danny Welbeck's, he's a big lad, and he did well, sort of 1v1 in positions. There was a lot of times toward the last 15 minutes of that game where he was 1v1 with him because everybody was heaping the ball forward, or Maguire went on a run with the ball or whatever. But he looked comfortable by himself, which I'm optimistic with, because he will be by himself a lot this season, especially when Maguire's pace can't get him back into certain areas.
These risks that you're asking your fullbacks to take, though, coming inside and really getting bodies forward, they're going to get shown up again and again and again if your ability to keep hold of the ball is as bad as it was today. We're too easy to pressure us and force us into bad passes and mistakes, and then Brighton are coming at you. That's why it is so important to have control in the middle of the park. Yeah. And with the players we've got, that rate of which we're turning over possession or struggling or looking lost for ideas or just bad touches and passes hit behind, it gives Brighton an opportunity again and again to come at you and put you under pressure.
Yeah, and
too often.
Like you said, there's the weaknesses we have will be exploited far more frequently than Ten Hag would allow for, because we can't keep the ball. And it's like every other top team in England has worked this out already, where the midfield is probably the most important part of the pitch. Like City have won 3 leagues in the last 4 years or whatever it is, basically without a striker. And they've had Aguero, but he's been on the bench most of the time. Jesus the same, but their midfield is so unbelievably strong that they just don't give the ball away. You don't get chances against City because you don't have the ball. United today, like you said, we can't keep the ball, and we give the ball away so often that when you've already got people like Shaw, who tracking back's never been his strongest suit, has it? And then all of a sudden now he's got to defend whilst he's running back to his own goal. He's not going to be able to do that against a well-organised, well-drilled team. If we can't keep the ball in midfield, it all falls apart, because you can't have a possession dominating the ball-based system and not be able to dominate the ball and keep possession and have players who can pass. That just isn't going to work. We've got a few super chats. Resonating Silence says, why does McTominay run with the ball so much? He tries to dribble all the time. If he had any sense, he would pass it quickly to better players. Absolutely pathetic. Damien...
It's unfortunate you can't pass so
real dig that. Damien says, as long as McFred is starting the midfield, we'll never progress. Rashford was rubbish today as well. Yeah, he should have scored that goal, I think. I mean... We'll get to that in a minute. If Irfan says the writing was on the wall after 14 seconds when they nearly scored. I think that was that when Fred? No, that was before Fred gave the ball away, wasn't it? Supporting United is like being in an abusive relationship. You hope they change, but it's always the same. Ten Hag is let down by the club. Sue Majid says Rashford chance was an offside. Do you even watch matches? Well, we do, yeah, but we thought, based on the replay, it wasn't actually offside. Or at least if it had gone in, it would have gone to VAR.
It would have gone to VAR.
Regardless,
he
looked onside.
Yeah, I thought he looked onside.
From here, he looked onside. Yeah.
Yeah. Guitarman84 says, there's times I love Fred, but he's a bomb scare. He has these moments where he seems to fall asleep. He's got to go.
Some of these analogies.
Fred has absolutely spun 180 since this afternoon, hasn't it? We were all talking about Fred's the one who can do it, put him next to the top.
We're talking about him being a bit higher up. Yeah. He was vulnerable today. I don't want him there.
No, he shouldn't be receiving the ball off the defenders time and time again. Occasionally throughout a game, when there's no other option or your other holding midfielder is not available, then you give it Fred as an out ball. But he was the one receiving the ball off the defence and turning. He's just not good at that, is he? We know he's not good at that.
He's good at the one-touch passing, the 1-2 touch passing, sort of linking in between with the wingers and the 10 and the forward. He's good at that because he'll find himself in those higher areas on the pitch where he can show a little bit of flair. But again, we saw people today doing flicks and tricks on you 2-0 down. It don't half piss me off, because it's like, why are you trying to do little fancy things when you're 2 goals behind? Yeah. Get back into the game, and if you want to try it, then fair enough, but don't be doing that shite now when you're 2-0 down.
We've got a few quotes from after the game. Harry Maguire He said, we went into the game positive, but it's the worst possible start, a bad start. That is right.
We know we need to do better.
He says as well, the first goal knocked us back very badly and we stopped playing. We have to be better on the ball, and at 2-0 down at half-time, it was a nightmare start. We didn't create enough to get the equaliser, and we have to improve on that. That's something we need to address. I think that was conceding first. We have to learn from that. He said, me and Leacher, which is Martinez, haven't played much together and we weren't on the same wavelength at times. I'm sure we'll get better and keep clean sheets.
That's a fair comment,
I mean,
guess.
in fairness, whilst I just think post-match interviews after a loss, you always look pathetic. Yeah. At least he's not making any, he's making points and he's taking responsibility. We didn't make enough chances. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. I don't think you can be particularly too aggressive to him for that. Like, he's not come out and said the pitch was too dry like Klopp did yesterday.
He's not come out with the typical media-trained shite that we're usually expecting. Like halfway through the season, look, we saw last year where it was just the same message, just rewritten in different ways.
Yeah.
He has to come out and face the media, and he was honest there, to be fair. Mm-hmm. He knows that he hasn't really built a partnership with him yet. I think, have they had one game together, or have they not had a game at all together?
I don't think they have.
It was Varane. It was Varane and Martinez, wasn't it, in the Vallecano game. So to think when they've not played an actual game together, they didn't do too bad.
No.
But again, the communication issue will hopefully throughout the season become less and less of a problem because they'll get used to playing together, knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses. I mean, we can see the strengths and weaknesses now. Martinez needs to cover him for pace to start with. Maybe Maguire is a bit more aggressive in terms of how he goes 1v1. They will learn all these different things as the season goes on. But again, we only lost this game today because of people's lack of awareness.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the first thing that Ten Hag needs to drill into the players is that, well, first of all, Luke Shaw's getting dropped for the second game, guaranteed.
Yeah. He was really poor today.
He was really poor today, wasn't he?
I wonder if Ronaldo would have made a difference. Not because it's Ronaldo, just because it's a striker. We did look a bit confused at times with who was doing what in the first half, and I think that's where it broke down a little bit. At least in the second half, there just seemed to be, he wanted the ball, he's making these runs, and it gave you a focal point.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'd started the game, maybe it wouldn't have been so.
There was no real focal point, was there? Because we saw it in the first half where it was when Fred took that shot from long distance. It went from Eriksen to Rashford, back to Eriksen on the left hand side, back to Rashford, back to Eriksen again, and it was like, right, if we just recycled it twice, there's no one in the box who can challenge three centre halves who are all 6'2" plus. No. So why are we trying to look for a cross? Goes back to Fred and he goes, you know what, fuck it, I'll have a go.
If you stick it into Eriksen or Bruno there on the edge of the box, back to goal, they're only going to do one thing: look for a little pass back to keep it ticking over. At least Ronaldo, he'll take the ball, he'll try and roll his man, he'll turn, he'll spray it out wide. It's just a bit more purpose in the attacking position. So yeah, that's another point of not having the players available today.
Yeah, definitely. Moving forward a little bit, then looking at the Brentford game next week, Saturday, 5:30 away. You said Luke Shaw may be out. Do you expect to see other big changes in the starting lineup?
I think Shaw will be out. I think he'll keep the same back three on top. Dalot, Martinez, Maguire. I think De Gea will start again, obviously. I wouldn't be surprised if we see like Eriksen start in a sort of 6 role with maybe either a Fred or McTominay or maybe even a Donny. Maybe. Yeah. I think he'll probably stick with Bruno and Sancho. I want to see Rashford dropped after that. He had those 2 chances that, he's tried to hit him first time on his left foot, but he needs to do better there. He simply has to do better there. And we saw a glimpse of Garnacho against Vallecano. He looked so comfortable in attacking players 1v1 and driving at fullbacks, which we've not seen from Rashford for 18 months now. And don't forget, he's only a 19-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid. All he wants to do is just play and have a chance at first team action. So why not do it against Brentford? Why not let him go and just express himself? Because that's what Manchester United wingers are all about, the Man United way of playing and all that bollocks.
It's a new season and a new manager, I guess, for Rashford, but he's been so poor for 18 months. It's starting a season like this. I wouldn't be surprised if he gives him the next game, gives him a few weeks to try and... Because he must know that his confidence isn't in a good place, but if it doesn't start happening for Rashford over the next month or two, I really don't see where he goes from here, because his reputation of being a decent player is so far back now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
He's nowhere near the England setup.
No.
And how can you command a starting berth for United when you're not assisting, you're not really scoring goals, the ball's breaking down with you, and there's better players.
Tempo's slowing down when he's on the ball. It's like he needs to take an extra 5 seconds to make a decision in comparison to when he was scoring 15 goals and getting 10 assists season on season. I don't even know if we'll ever see that player again. I don't think we will.
You know what? I'm going to be a bit more optimistic rather than not rubbishing, but calling Marcus Rashford's career over. Not that you've said that, but
I didn't say that.
Rather than that being the next step.
Rather than lying.
I'm going to say this: it's the first game of the season. Ten Hag has still got plenty to put on this team. I think they're still trying to learn the system. There's players who've never played together before. We didn't have a striker starting the game. We're still looking for more players. We need to buy players in midfield, and we're trying to. I'm still optimistic. I don't think one bad game ruins a season. No. We've only got one less point than Liverpool. It's not the end of the world, is it? Let's be honest. Few super chats. Conor O'Keefe says, we honestly just need to be happy we didn't lose by more. Are you happy? Are you happy we didn't lose by more?
Well, of course, if you put it like that.
Start smiling. McFred starting as our central midfielders. Are we surprised that we lost? Maybe not. Jav says it's clear the manager doesn't run this ship. We know that already. Week 1, he doesn't run this ship. Jerome says, does McTominay do anything other than foul players and pass the ball backwards? Philip Owen, do you think Ten Hag will drop McFred? I don't think he's
when he gets
better
better options, yes.
I would replace him with
away.
Van der Beek and maybe Garner. Suma says, Scott to the Scottish teams. I don't know what we're seeing here. Oh, trying to sell all of our players for some profit. It's possible. Edgar says, we lose to a team. We lose as a team, we win as a team. I want to see what the reaction is against Brentford. Me too. And Martian says, no idea why there's a reluctance from the players to do anything quicker and first time. Taking 4 meaningless touches, just cross it in. That's the thing that disappointed me the most, I think, is that we were seeing that in pre-season. They were passing it first time. They were making runs in behind and trying to find the man. It's like it just went back to last year where it's, I'll get the ball, take a touch, look up, take a touch, look up, and then I might pass it when, basically there's no benefit to be had from playing that ball now.
Well, Martial was a big part of that in pre-season.
He was.
Having that player in the box that can get on the end of it with a head, with a little flick playing on the last man. Without that in the first half, you could see that they weren't really interested in crossing it. They weren't even picking up crossing positions. It was like they were trying to play it through the middle, come inside and work little shots and stuff, and just nothing came off in the first half.
No, really poor. Right, that's going to be all from us. Thank you, Tom, for coming on. Thank you, Jordan, as well. Find them both on social media. If you want to find them, you truly, really want to. In your heart, you will be able to find them. Man United have lost to Brighton in the opening game of the season. So much excitement and potential at the start of the day, all cut to ribbons. At least we didn't have to do it at the start of the weekend. It would have been worse if it was a Friday night fixture, wouldn't it? We could enjoy yesterday and today a little bit. That's the only positive I'm taking from this. We'll be back tomorrow with the news and the Paddock podcast as well, so make sure you check them out. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a bit.